Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Soul Sugar Podcast. It is your host, Carrie Rad, and I'm here today with Alexander Ailing, my husband, and this is a long time coming. I have been thinking about coming back with Soul Sugar Podcast for years now. The last real episode that I remember, there were episodes after that, but the last one that I remember was when we were in managed isolation moving to New Zealand, and the title was 14 Days of Managed Isolation. And here we are now, living in New Zealand.
And it's 2025. How did that happen?
2025 sounds like such a...
Science fiction.
It sounds like such a high number that's just shocking that you're like, we're not in 2025.
I still think that the world is like decompressing from the time warp of the big C. And it's weird. It's honestly kind of scary how 4+ years, 5 years now has just gone by like, the blink of an eye.
And that's kind of how it's felt being away from the podcast. It just has gone by so fast. So much has happened. And it's really interesting because there were people who were around for the podcast, and I think a lot of people who listened to the podcast came over from YouTube, but I also think that there's a lot of people, especially over the last 4 years to 5 years or so, that have really taken themselves off social media a bit and maybe are just focused on podcasting. So I know that there were some people who were just listeners. And over the years, I had people reaching out asking like when Soul Sugar Podcast would come back. And for years, I kept thinking that I was coming back, that I would have the idea of coming back, and then it just wouldn't happen. And so much has happened in life that kind of kept it like it was sort of an ebb and flow of...
I feel like from an outsider, but a person who's close to you, I wouldn't
call you an outsider.
I know, but from your podcast,
yeah.
This is not my platform. It's not my podcast. I have made a few appearances on it, and I love being a guest. But I have noticed from conversations with you about it that I kind of put it as like you put a pot of water to boil, and like you had it at that temperature where it was just below getting to boiling point, and I feel like that is what getting that next episode of the podcast recorded was like. I feel like there was a lot of back and forth about whether or not to incorporate video into the podcast, and it just was one of those things where life has been busy. 4 years, 5 years has gone by in the blink of an eye because life has been busy. And I'm actually pretty stoked for you. I'm happy that we're making it happen and we're incorporating video. And
yeah, that's the big thing, because since I've been podcasting, video has become a really important element in the podcast world, which personally I quite like. I know a lot of podcasters didn't like it, don't like it, because one cool thing about podcasting was that you didn't feel like you needed to be on camera. You didn't have to kind of look to a camera or prepare yourself for that. And so that I totally understood that. But for me personally, because I am a YouTuber, I am a
YouTube first.
I am YouTube first. I'm a YouTuber through and through. That's my, origin story.
We're YouTube first influencers.
Yes. I don't like the word influencers, never will, but I'm a YouTuber and I'm fine with that, and content creator. I feel okay about it. I'm like, okay, cool. We're gonna podcast, and we're gonna post this podcast on my YouTube channel. So if you are listening,
we're pod tubing.
We're pod tubing.
Gee.
If you are listening, then hi, hello, I'm in your ear holes. And if you...
Am I the only one who's always thought that the ear holes thing is just kind of I've never heard anybody else say ear holes before, but I guess if I was going to have anybody in my ear holes, I'd probably want it to be you.
Good to know, honey. And just if you're watching on the tube, then hi, hello, I'm in your eyeballs. You're seeing me, and we're podcasting. So I think it's kind of cool because we're killing two birds with one stone. You know what I mean? I'm coming back to you on YouTube, and I'm also coming back to the podcast. And that doesn't mean that I won't be vlogging. I still want to do vlogs and share what's going on here at the homestead and in our life here in New Zealand. So I'll just be doing a combination of both. But the big elephant in the room and the big, life change is that we're parents now.
Mom and dad.
Mom and dad.
And it's funny, the internet was saying that back in the day. You would post like a vlog.
Well, that's just any content creator in general. They were called mom and dad.
I don't see. I guess I missed that train.
You did.
Because I was like, why are people calling us mom and dad? And then people were like, please adopt me, mom and dad. And I'm like, I don't know how to respond to that.
What I love about Alex is that he doesn't know internet culture that well, even though he is fully an internet kid. Like, he's a content creator, you're a YouTuber, but you don't know like the ins and outs of like internet slang. You don't know TikTok culture.
Definitely don't know TikTok culture. I post and then I evacuate. That's always been the way that I've done it. Like, I create something, I put it on the platform to share it, and then I don't really consume too much. Like, my YouTube recommended videos is like surf films and permaculture stuff, and maybe occasionally podcasts, but I'm not like too fussed about the new lingo.
Yeah, so him thinking that we're the only people on the internet that viewers would call mom and dad is really funny, because you're like, why are they calling us that? But it's a very normal thing. Well, back in the day, people would be like, mom and dad, for like YouTubers or creators. And so Alex is like, no, we are officially mom and dad.
No, officially mom and dad now.
Currently, we have a little 11-month-old today. Wow. Today's January 20th as we record this. And she was born Feb 20, and so she's exactly 11 months old today.
I know that's huge, and it's crazy how quickly the 11 months have gone by, but I distinctly remember the 9-month birthday when Carrie came to me and she was like, Eliana's 9 months old today. And I'm like, I know, that's insane. She's like, tomorrow she'll have been alive longer outside of my womb than inside of it. And I was like, wow, that's actually pretty mind-boggling. Not something that I would have thought of, but that really
was
interesting.
Big milestone for me personally, where I was just like, oh my goodness, she's out in the world longer than she's been in my belly. And let's just take a moment, because we don't share Eliana and all of her cuteness online.
Crazy cuteness.
Let's just take a moment. We can gush. Let's just get the gushing out of the way.
Gushers.
Gushers.
Gushers were Carrie's little pregnancy snack.
I ordered gushers from this American market in New Zealand. I got like Cheez-Its and gushers and stuff like that, because I was like so nostalgic for anything that I grew up with.
Junk food.
Yeah, I was like, I want In-N-Out, I want Cheez-Its. I never got to have In-N-Out because we never went to the US when I was pregnant. We thought about it, but then we were just like, let's just be grounded during the pregnancy and stay here in the countryside. And so we did, and it was wonderful. But it did make it so I was like, I can't have these like, I just wanted nostalgic food, honestly, American food that I grew up with, that I was just like, I just want In-N-Out burger. I want a bean and cheese burrito from San Diego.
Bean and cheese burritos. Burritos.
And
Mexican food.
I want like some Cheez-Its and gushers. So I was able to order the Cheez-Its and gushers from a American market here in New Zealand where they sell some American food. I never even ended up eating very much of the gushers.
I ate the gushers. I found the gushers. I was like, what? Oh my God. Where did the gushers come from? They were at the bottom, hiding at the bottom of our little pantry thing. And I was cooking dinner for Carrie and I found gushers. And I was like, I'm going to be cracking into that, because that's lunchbox 90s nostalgia right there.
I had some, but then
I had the rest.
On like my third gusher, I was like, this can't be good.
No, I'm actually pretty sure I wanted to bring up, I know that they just said they made Red 40, the dye, illegal because it's cancer causing. And I'm like, I'm sure that Gushers had Red 40 along with plenty of other additives and dyes that'll probably soon be made illegal because they're carcinogenic.
Yeah, I was like eating the Gushers, and by like the third one I was like, I don't feel like my baby needs this.
I don't think this is good for me.
So that said, where did we get to Gushers?
You were gushing, and then I threw a curveball into your podcast,
So let's
which tends to be what I do. Sorry, I take us off topic, but to fun places.
Yeah, I like it. Let's just gush for a moment about Eliana. She is the happiest, sweetest, cutest thing that I've ever seen in my life. And I know that we're her parents, so we're biased. But I'm gonna tell you, there's something about this little thing that is just, of course I'm gonna say extra special, but I'll tell you, she's just so smiley, so happy, and so cute, and just these crystal blue ocean eyes, which is shocking to us because
Carrie has brown eyes, I have green eyes.
Both of the grandpas have blue eyes?
Both grandpas have blue eyes, but not blue like hers. Her eyes are like the ocean, like
so
a
blue.
stormy, beautiful,
Emerald
deep ocean blue.
with like a dark blue line around them.
Like a dark and stormy.
They're so beautiful, and she's so fun.
Like that Billie Eilish song.
Ocean eyes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. She's so cute, and we love her so much, and becoming a mom has been the best. It's been hard, the hardest. It's, when people say being a mom is a job, it is so a job, and it is, I've done lots of jobs, and it is the hardest job I've ever had, but the most meaningful and the best. And it's weird to call it a job, but I know for so many, like, that is their job and that is what they do. And it is a job. It is a hard job, and it is, but the absolute best. I've never felt more myself when I became a mom. I just feel like I'm exactly now who I've always meant to be. But there was a huge piece of me missing.
Mom and dad.
Yeah.
The internet knew before you knew. They're like, yo, Carrie's gonna be a mom.
I always wanted to be a mom. It was something that I grew up always wanting to experience. I wanted to experience pregnancy. I wanted to experience motherhood. Growing up, when I would see pregnant women, I would be like, I'd see them and I would just think, that's a superhero. She is growing a human being as we speak. And to this day, I still think it is the most amazing thing to literally create a human being in your womb and then birth it.
It's magic. It's alchemy. There's some serious spells and stuff happening with that because, yeah, I don't know. The transformation is insane. It's just like one day you're like, barf a little bit and you're like, I think I'm pregnant. And then you're off to the races. And, 9 months later, a fully formed human
Alex
is like
was there.
ejected.
He watched her come out.
I watched everything. I was there with the Powerade, just like keeping Carrie hydrated and nourished. I had a backpack full of snacks, multiple cold drinks.
The Powerade.
Yeah, I was like, honey, I know you don't want this, but open up. We got to do a squirt. We're in the middle of a marathon here, and the only thing I could do is like give you a back rub, tell you you're a superhero, and keep you hydrated.
It was good. I look back on the birth experience and I look at it fondly, and there were moments. We shared the birth story where we both sat down. I started off the video and talked about the first half of it, and then Alex joined in and talked more about his perspective as well, because you were a big part of it as well. And
support crew.
Yeah, so check out that video if you want to know more of the details. If you're just tuning back in from who knows when, it's funny because when I posted TikTok, which we should talk about TikTok because it was banned for 12 hours and it's just come back into the world.
Is it already back?
It's already back.
He's gone and then...
She's back.
Surprise.
Yeah, and it was funny because Wait, I just want to finish that thought. I shared on TikTok that, what did I share on TikTok? I don't know. Let's move into the TikTok conversation. 12 hours banned, and now it's back. And it was really funny because when I went into the app today, it was like everybody was talking about Americans while they were gone.
Oh, really? They're like, okay, the Americans are out of the room. Let's talk.
I didn't know if my TikTok was going to be banned because I'm in New Zealand and we're living here, and I was like, oh, maybe I'll be fine because like we live in New Zealand. And
but you started your account in America.
Yeah. So it was like, you're an American, goodbye, banned when I opened it. And to be honest, I hadn't been posting on TikTok very much recently, and so I was just kind of like, meh. I like the platform.
That's been my approach to TikTok from the beginning.
I know.
I've been like, meh. Yeah. You continue.
So I go back into the app this morning and it's like, yada yada, that like we're back and welcome back. Anyways, and so I go back into the app and people are just like, there's this sound.
I think the screenshot said along the lines of Donald Trump is the savior of TikTok.
Yeah.
Which was like, wonderful. Here we go.
Which is a big question mark because I'm sure in 2020 that was a totally different thing. We're not gonna go too far down that rabbit hole. Maybe.
There's so many more rabbit holes now.
There's so much.
2025 is like there's rabbit holes everywhere.
Can I tell you something I was thinking about this morning? I was like, I actually feel like anything could happen at any time now.
You don't even need a tinfoil hat anymore.
No.
You know, everybody has one.
It's like anything can happen.
The land, the world of conspiracy.
It's true. It's like nobody. If you would have told me that 2020 would happen, the global pandemic, I would have been like, yeah, right. And then TikTok being banned was so shocking because, yeah, America, we don't ban social media apps. It's so random and weird, and I know that there's all different sides of the argument and all that kind of stuff, but like, never would have thought that would have happened. When they were talking about it being banned, I was like, yeah, right. And, even though, I think we should discuss a little bit shocking about the fires in Los Angeles.
That's a whole different convo. Let's stay on this one first.
I don't want to go too down the rabbit hole of TikTok.
I just think personally, being internet dinosaurs that we are.
Yeah, for sure.
We are 100%.
Grandpa. No, not mom and dad.
Not mom and dad.
We're mom and dad to Eliana. We're grandpa to you guys.
Yeah. We have been creating content professionally for over a decade. So
can I just say something real quick? January 7th was my 11-year anniversary. Wow. And I didn't even celebrate it. So happy 11 years on YouTube for me.
That's incredible. Congratulations.
Thank you.
You're into your second. Yeah. Well, you're double digits plus.
Doing anything for 11 years is crazy.
Yeah. The internet has changed so much in that period of time. Mm-hmm. The platforms have changed so much in that period of time. And if I were to just have one takeaway with where social media is going, is that we are now in a new age of a new information age in which it's becoming harder and harder to discern truth from lie, and fact checking is gone. And so it's up to you. And AI, we're in the whole new world of AI and artificial intelligence generated content, that we are now in the wild west of social media. And so if you're going to be on platforms, I think it's important, it behooves you to do research. If you see a piece of content that resonates and you don't know that information, and you're like, oh my God, how can this be true? Go to a different platform, go to a search engine, and research it, because a lot of the times things that are popping up now on Instagram, Facebook, X, YouTube Shorts, the algorithms prioritize eye-catching, salacious content, and oftentimes now, maybe there's a shred of truth in some things, maybe there's no truth in others, but it's really important to take that information, sit with it for a second, go to a different platform, go to a search, and like research before you allow that to sink in as fact, because the internet has never been less rules. You know, we're in this new age where it's like, cool, let's just peel the Band-Aid off and everyone and anyone can say whatever they want. And that's awesome, like freedom of speech, obviously. But at the same time, we have a new responsibility as consumers of information to like double check things.
I love accounts that do fact checks. You know, they like go in and they show you all of the different research and different sites that they went on to find out if this thing that's online that is being shared around is actually true. I follow a couple of accounts like that and I love it because it really shows you, okay, this is where this person went and fact checked and got all of the information. So they almost do the research for you. And they're just this like middle of the line
but
balance.
That's where I'm like, also other people doing the research for you is like, I think we're at a time now where you cannot outsource that. You have to be the person to inform yourself and to get information from both sides, from all different angles, and draw a big Venn diagram in the middle and say like, what is in that little overlap, and maybe looking at that could be the truth.
Yeah, because the internet can radicalize you in certain ways and radicalizes people when they go down certain wormholes because the algorithm is just going to keep feeding them what they want to hear. That said, let's discuss the LA fires and what's going on with that, because that's a whole different thing that I don't want to be all doom and gloom in this podcast. We're going to get to happy, you know, updates and what's been going on and stuff like that. But I think that's important to discuss what's going on in the world and then update what's going on in our life. We can have that duality in it, because just kind of skimming over all of that kind of stuff I think is not always the way that we've gone about things. I think it's good to discuss things that are going on in the world. So the LA fires, it's a huge thing for Alex to discuss too, because his grandparents' home is actually in the Pacific Palisades, and he shared a YouTube video all about the Palisades fire and how it affected his family, but also it's affected so many people in Los Angeles. And it's another one of those things where I look at it now and I'm like, how is that real? If somebody told me that was going to happen, I would say, yeah, right.
Yeah.
To tell your side of the story, we were actually on vacation and we got...
Yeah, I mean, the Palisades, the Pacific Palisades, long story short, it's a small community north of Santa Monica, south of Malibu, right at the base of the Santa Monica mountain range. It's a beautiful area. My grandparents moved there in the 1950s. They raised their children there. My mom, her 3 siblings, they all grew up in the Pacific Palisades. They went to Pali High, and that area has been like a nexus for my family. My grandparents were, you know, the people who always would have an open door, open home. So anytime I was driving through LA, I'd drop in and see them.
Your grandpa was Palisadian of the Year.
My grandpa won Citizen of the Year in the Pacific Palisades in like the early 90s. They were very active in the community. And that was, I think, the thing that really distinguished the Palisades from other places in LA was this sense of community. And yeah, you know, unfortunately, those Santa Monica mountains are beautiful, but they're dry and fire prone, and they're covered in shrubs and grass. And basically, long story short, the last 2 winters before this one were very, very wet statistically, some of the wettest winters on record. And so all of that water caused a ton of vegetation growth. And then this last year has been one of the driest winters, one of the driest seasons on record. It didn't really rain significantly for 8 or 9 months. So all of that vegetation grew and then got really, really dry. And in the wintertime in California, especially in LA, you get a weather phenomenon called the Santa Ana winds. And the Santa Ana winds are basically offshore, hot, dry very strong winds that come from the interior of California and even further abroad, because the interior of California is dry desert for the most part. And so those high altitude dry deserts, that wind is sucked out towards the ocean. And the Santa Anas are those winds. And basically that can cause fires because it's a dry wind. It's very strong, and if something catches flame, those winds can push sparks and instantly create a very scary scenario of basically a firestorm. And what happened in the Pacific Palisades is something straight out of a movie. It is absolutely horrible. The devastation is difficult to comprehend. Thousands and thousands of homes have been lost. People have died. Entire blocks of neighborhoods, home after home after home after home, are gone.
As we speak, there's still, I don't know what the containment is right now, but there's also the Eaton fire. And the crazy thing about it is that there were many different fires going on.
There were 7 at one time.
Yeah.
But the Palisades was the first one, and then the Eaton fire.
It's 52% contained, which is much better than what it has been over the last couple of weeks. For days, it was like 5% or something, and it's been going up in containment, which is good. But I wanted to hear like your personal experience with it, because his grandparents' home was actually spared, but the rest of the street yes, but the main house is good.
The garage, we didn't. Okay, so long story short, when the first images were coming out from like the New York Times, the LA Times, all of that news coverage was literally on the street that my grandparents' home was on. My grandmother passed away in February of 2024. In June of 2024, Carrie and I and Eliana traveled to LA. My whole extended family was there. Everybody gathered in that home. We had a funeral for my grandmother and my grandfather. I did the eulogy, and then Carrie and I ended up staying on and off in LA for a couple of weeks in the Pacific Palisades. And it's hard to think that a place that just a few months ago, we were walking with Eliana in the stroller and going to the farmer's market and grabbing a coffee in town, and it's insane to think that that's all gone, but it is.
And so many memories there. I remember you asked me to be your girlfriend, or to be exclusive with you outside of your grandmother's house on that street, Yeah. So there's just so many memories just over the years in that area for so many people. And I think something that the media covered was like, yes, there were a lot of celebrity homes affected, but there were also a lot of homes of people who have just lived there for generations.
Yeah. That's not like the Palisades that we knew. Like the Palisades that my family is like normal people who moved there in the 50s. And then, my parents' generation, my mom's generation, this was before the Palisades was this like celebrity neighborhood. It was just normal people.
Yeah, and it's filled with just celebrities, but also people just working normal jobs as well. And also I feel like I didn't like how the media, there were a lot of different areas that it was going, but I did see a lot of threads of people being like, oh, they're celebrities, they have money, they can just rebuild. But it's like, these people also have...
There are a lot of grandma houses and,
And they're also human beings, celebrities. Like, they also have memories and homes and families, and, they, just because they are celebrities doesn't mean that we can't show empathy for all people in all different walks of life. So now that we've chatted through some things that are going on in the world today, let's talk about what's going on in our world today. We're living out here in New Zealand. We're living in the countryside. We have shared a bit about that on YouTube and on the podcast. But I think one thing that I love about podcasting is that you can have a candid conversation and really get into the details of things. I think YouTube videos, first and foremost, when you're creating it, at least I think both of us are this way, is that you're more so thinking about like the creative journey that you're bringing people on, as opposed to, although I do chatty bits in a lot of my vlogs, but you like to keep them, to a minimum. I feel like podcasting, you have so much room to explore and chat.
I think it's because the viewer comes into a video and a podcast with a different expectation. Mm-hmm. So if you're trying to watch a YouTube video, you're trying to watch a video, like attention, we have short attention spans nowadays. So, clips are cut shorter and shorter and shorter. And the whole idea is to make things move as quickly as possible to avoid people losing interest. Whereas with a podcast, it's like the whole premise is completely different. The premise is we're sitting here, we're on the couch, we're chilling, we're having a conversation. And in real life, you don't rush conversations. It's not like if you were to sit down with a friend and have a casual conversation, you wouldn't be like, excuse me, we need to shorten that gap between you thinking about what you're saying.
The Millennial Pause is what they call it.
Is it? Okay,
no, I'm just kidding. Yeah, but they call it the Millennial Pause when, millennials will be chatting and then they'll be like, and then, da-da-da-da. I don't know what it is, but sometimes I have it in my mind now. Short form video has changed.
Is that a Gen Z?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Short form video has completely just sort of
scrambled brains.
It has definitely made attention spans far less. And so, being grandma and grandpa from YouTube, we have...
Back in our day,
you could make long form YouTube videos and people would like... And I think this still exists. It does still exist. I have my favorite YouTubers that I watch. But I do think that when you are a content creator who does also do short form video, you have in your mind, I never used to, but now I have in my mind, like, how long is this attention span going to be for me to just kind of chat, and am I doing the millennial pause?
I feel like there's a part of me that has just consistently pushed back against that. And like, I enjoy making long form content.
Totally.
I don't really enjoy making short form content as much. And I think that's because I don't know, I think that creativity and storytelling isn't supposed to be rushed. Like from a human perspective, a story can take a long time. It's not like nobody woke up one day and was like, we're going to tell you a story in 7 seconds. It's like beginning, middle, end. Done. Great. Okay. But that's not how it works. Like, where's the nuance in that? Where's the creativity? Where's the, I don't know, hook, line, and sinker. And like, I feel like in content creating, there has been this race to the bottom in the sense of like compress your story, compress the point, compress the time frame, and squeeze it all down. And it's just like squeezing your creativity into the last little drop and then instantly posting it. And I don't know, I don't love that. I'm not into that. So,
and there's content creators who just do short form, and that's cool too. That said, I don't want to go down that whole rabbit hole. What I do want to discuss,
I love that rabbit hole,
is that just kind of what I was talking about, like just us being here in life, and like we moved to the countryside of New Zealand. I want to go down that rabbit hole.
Yeah, well, I think it's related because we could be making more, creating more here, but at the same time, like if I'm going to the garden, like I want to just be in the garden.
Totally.
I want, if I'm going on a walk, like I just want to go on a walk. Like I don't know. It's getting harder to share, like if I'm working on a project, if I'm fixing something or building something, it's hard to like want to grab the camera and like document that because then I'm doing two jobs.
That's the rabbit hole I want to go down.
Yeah.
I like that rabbit hole. I think that we slowed down a lot. I know we have. When we were living in LA, we were working non-stop. We wouldn't really even do, part of what I love to do and do online is create a space in a home. And so when we moved to our house together and when we moved in together that we were renting in LA, I shared a lot of content about making a cozy home and what I was doing to organize the space and stuff like that. So we were creating a home at the time. Well, I was, for my content, you know, and you were working on the computer nonstop, editing constantly. And so was I. And the time that we got away from the computer was when we would go out in the garden. And we built a vegetable garden in our, you know, urban sprawl, but in our backyard. We had a big grass section in our backyard. And we, from scratch, built a vegetable garden. And I had to beg Alex a little bit there because he grew up doing garden work.
PTSD from being like the one kid in the family whose job it was to like handle the whole garden.
That was his chore, so he was a bit resistant at first. And I was like, let's just do it. And my dream was always having, you know, vegetables growing in the backyard. I loved seeing the corn in our backyard just like grow over the fence. I was like, one day I just want to look out and just see grass and corn. I really did say that.
And we have it.
So we started the vegetable garden, and a lot of our time spent away from the computer was when we were in the vegetable garden. So we just started dreaming that up. We were like, oh, what if we had chickens here in the backyard? And then, you know, Alex always planted the seed of what if we moved to New Zealand? I have dual citizenship because this is him saying it. He's like, listen, I have dual citizenship. My father was born and raised in New Zealand. I've had dual citizenship since birth, and I always wanted to and would dream about moving back to New Zealand, potentially having a family there. And I always had the desire. There were two desires that aligned really well with that dream. And that was, one, I always kind of wanted to live abroad. I wanted to experience that. And I hadn't. I traveled a lot, but I'd never actually lived abroad for an extended period of time. And then another huge element of what really aligned was that I always wanted to live in the countryside. I wanted to live in a little farmhouse. I wanted a plot of land. I wanted to extend the vegetable garden. And I always dreamt of like having lambs and chickens and things like that. And so when we came to New Zealand to kind of, you know, suss out the situation, I had never been to New Zealand, and we were chatting about moving there. So I was like, well, we should go. And so we went, and when we drove around, I was just thinking, this is everything that I've always had like visualized as a dream. I told Alex, I was like, I want to do like the countryside of New Zealand though, because there's cities here, of course, too. And so that option is there. But I wanted to do countryside, and he aligned with that, because even if we stayed in California, if we stayed in the US, we would have done something more rural like we have here. But we also knew that we were going to grow our family, and so there was also another beautiful element about starting that in New Zealand. And I kind of want to discuss what moving to the countryside has done for us as people, our experience here, and the people around us, how that's kind of changed and transformed us, because I feel like we've really become who we are today and still are because of this experience. And also, after discussing that, I'd like us to go into a little bit about what having a baby in New Zealand was like and kind of that experience.
I think moving to the countryside, like you said, if we didn't do it in New Zealand, we were going to do it somewhere else. And I think that when you're in your early 20s and your mid 20s, living in an urban, super urban environment in a city is kind of like a natural progression. Like you want to be in the place where things are happening and you want to feel like you're at the center of it all. And then I think, you know, something clicks in the later years of your 20s or maybe your early 30s where you're like, I feel like I kind of want to experience something different. I want to experience, and this maybe is just me or us, but I think it is. I think it's something bigger. You know, obviously there's different types of people, but I do think that there's kind of like a back to the land movement a little bit happening.
Especially for millennials.
Yeah, and, you know, feeling a connection to the land. And I lived my 20s and built my online career through, you know, travel. living out of a backpack, digital nomad, go. And that was awesome. And I loved those experiences and those memories, but at the same time, I was never like in a place really for more than a week or two at a time. And it was really hard to like put down roots. And I think that moving here has been, obviously this has been the longest I've lived in any one place, the most connected I've ever felt to a piece of land and a community, being a part of a community. We have wonderful neighbors and wonderful people and friends that we've made down here. But yeah, I mean, like just the necessity of learning new skills, buying a fixer-upper home and on a piece of land and having to learn how to manage it, take care of it, fix things, improve it, has been a monumental journey, a steep learning curve, but one that has been incredibly fulfilling. And that's kind of what my takeaway with it is, you know, we're sitting in this room in a building that I pretty much renovated, you know, from start till finish. And it's really nice in here.
We're in our guest cottage right now. Eliana's taking a nap, and I'm just gonna check on her.
She's there. I got her.
She's good. Yeah. So we're in the guest cottage, and it's nice to come in here because obviously she's sleeping in the house, and we're just like seconds away from the house, and we can like watch her on the little monitor, and we can come in here. And this has been a really great space to share with friends and family who have come and stayed. And my mom's going to be here in a couple of weeks, which I'm so excited about, for Eliana's first birthday, and she's going to stay in here. And yeah, it's been such a beautiful journey I've talked about this before, but to watch you become so much more capable as a person. And I have seen that just like be really good, I think, just for your confidence too. I think obviously you feeling like a more capable person is going to tie into your confidence. And it's funny because I used to talk about that a lot on YouTube when I was doing more of like the self-improvement type of stuff. I remember thinking like, or not thinking, but saying on YouTube to have more confidence, learn new skills, become a more capable person. But we've really put that into action living here. And when we left LA, Alex bought a tool belt and he put it on, and it's funny to think
Carrie
back.
laughed at me.
I laughed at you because I thought it was cute.
Okay, well, I was like, I didn't get the cute part. I just got the laughing when I put it on. I was like, look, right before we moved, I was like, I bought a tool belt. I can't wait to like use it. And she's like,
and I use it all the time.
Now I can't take it off.
Well, mind you, I couldn't get him to hang up a picture on the wall when we lived in LA. We used TaskRabbit for everything, which is an app where like somebody who's handy comes over and like helps you with whatever.
Hire a husband, basically.
And but now it's like you, without me even having to ask you, you just like go outside and you do things.
Be a TaskRabbitter now.
You could be a TaskRabbit.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is crazy.
I am though. I'm just your personal one.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, for some things, and your personal one too. Whenever you want something done too, you do it, and that's true. Great.
Honestly, learning how all of these things. The last 4 years has been like a crash course in practical skills. Yeah. And I look at all the things that living here rurally and renovating a home has taught me through necessity. Necessity is the mother of all teachers, right? And so when we moved in, even just to get a professional to come out here and like look at the house or look at a job, we get charged. So there's an instant like disincentive for wanting to hire somebody. And then obviously YouTube is a wonderful resource for learning new skills.
Moral of the story, YouTube's great.
And I think there's also something really fun about learning new tools. You know, I mean, just like a couple months ago, I went and helped a neighbor with a project, and like at the end of the day, we had to use a digger, and he's like, do you know how to use a digger? I'm like, not yet. And so he taught me how to use a digger. And I think there's a part of like every young boy who sees heavy machinery and is like,
yeah, like the children's books, like the big yellow digger,
like
yeah,
Kiwi kids
that might be a Kiwi
obsessed with diggers. But no, I think, you know, bulldozers, fire trucks,
and the Kiwi
chainsaws.
way is, you know, living here in New Zealand has just the lifestyle, but also the people have taught us so much. Most Kiwis are really DIY, especially in the areas outside of the city, and even people in the city. But I think, you know, being rural, you do have to do most things, if not everything, yourself. And so everybody we live around, they're super self-starters, and they do a lot of stuff themselves. And so that inspires you, and they also want to help, which is a beautiful thing. And so you get to kind of like spend time with your friends. I see you like spend time with one of your guy friends, and you guys are working on a project, but you're also like talking and like spending time together and doing something together and learning. And it's a really great thing to see. And one of the things that I love about being out here too is the reminder to slow down. Nature tells you to slow down. It reminds you to. And especially with Eliana, before Eliana came, we slowed down. But being with her is another reminder of slowing down and being present. And that's been a really big change living out here for us, because it's always been important to us. I remember when we first met, one of the things we bonded over was that, yeah, we're content creators and we're online a lot, but like, let's go to the mountains and not bring our phones.
Yeah, and do a few days totally disconnected.
Without the internet. Yeah. And so that was one thing we always connected on and bonded over. And I think that's why, I think to live this lifestyle and to do what we've done, it required for us to both be on the same page about all that stuff. It's a huge lifestyle switch, and it is a huge undertaking to do what we've done. And if one of us was just kind of like one toe in, it wouldn't have evolved the way that it has. We both had to be like, okay, here we go. And that doesn't, and I'm talking about moving to the countryside, like getting a homestead that need to be renovated, getting animals, you know, all these different things that we've done together. We had to be both on, we had to be on the same page to get there, because we had to pull each other. Like we had to, you know, there were definitely moments where one person would be like,
naivety helps.
Yeah, it helped.
It helps you make the initial leap, and then
but also the yin and yang, and the, you know, when one person's like, what have we done? The other one's like, well, remember, you know, like yesterday when you walked past me in the kitchen, you were like, God, living out here is just the best. Or you said like, it's so good out here, you know? Mm. And I remember thinking to myself, I'm just going to bottle that up.
Yeah. Cause there's definitely been days where I'm like, what have we done?
Because in anything, and we talk about this a lot, anything that is worth
doing
is gonna have its hard parts.
Nothing worthwhile is easy. And, you know, as cliche as that sounds, it's so true.
So true.
And, you know, I think that we both are okay with, I think there's a level of curiosity innately in both of us that pushes us towards taking leaps of faith and diving in the deep end. And it's like, well, look, we know how to swim, so it doesn't matter how deep that is. And cool, it'll be a journey, it'll be an adventure. I think that there is a part of our personalities where we look at each other and we go, hey, well, we have each other and we can figure it out, and we're adults, and, you know, we can make this work.
And we also have the open-mindedness, compassion for ourselves, and sort of this understanding with each other that if it doesn't work out, that's okay. And we said that to ourselves when we moved to New Zealand. We were like, if this isn't for us, then like we can go back.
Nothing's permanent. And I think, well, I mean, hey, it doesn't get more Buddhist or Zen than that. Just that phrase alone. Nothing is permanent. We're not permanent.
Nope.
We're not going to be here forever. Life is short. So I guess here's I think one of the things that led us to this path is that we were self-starters. We started creating. We persevered. We got lucky, and we were able to make this a career. And then one of the elements of this career is that, in fact, you don't need to be in a certain place. You could work from wherever you want. And although a lot of creators, especially in LA, know that, there was always this feeling of like, well, I kind of need to be in LA. I kind of need to be in the scene and
around other people doing it.
Yeah, and then I guess one day we just woke up and said, well, actually, we don't need to do that. We don't need to be here. Why are we here? We don't go to any events, and the events we do go to, we don't really have fun. So
follow our heart. And our heart was leading us here, where we are right now. And we spent a long time looking for where we were going to live in New Zealand. And honestly, last minute, we thought we were going to come back to the US because there were so many different things. And I've discussed even bringing Eliana into the world. We, went through a really hard time with experiencing pregnancy loss along the way, and getting turned down on offers. Like, we would put offers down on houses and we would get turned down, and it just felt like, oh, okay, maybe we're not supposed to do this. Maybe everything is telling us that we're on the wrong path. And we really had that discussion because it felt like that. And another example of like anything worthwhile is not going to just fall into place easily. And very last minute, we found this house. Very last minute, we walked through it kind of almost begrudgingly, like being like, well, is this really what we, is this it? Like, are we going back? But right when we walked onto the plot of land, we hadn't even walked inside the house. We both go, this is it. We looked at each other and we were just walking, and we have this valley view that I'm sure you guys have seen a lot in our videos and on Instagram. And we just immediately knew that this was it, because our home is situated right in between like these hillsides, and it feels like the land is giving you like a warm hug, and it's just filled with just so many beautiful plants and trees, and it's so lush. And the previous owner did a really good job of, we've planted a lot of things, but coming here and having so many mature fruit trees. We have an orchard. We have a creek running through the property. We feel so immensely grateful and lucky every day. I think we say, if not every day, almost every other day, how thankful we are for the life that we are working hard to create every day, but also just the life that we've been really lucky to fall into, and to make happen, but also just to be able to be here. There's obviously things like your citizenship of New Zealand that brought us here, and these things that, we just feel lucky. Not that we wouldn't have ever been able to move to New Zealand without that, but it obviously made things easier. And it led us here.
Yeah, and I've always been a big believer that if there are potentialities in your life, if you have connections to a place, or if you have options, I think, especially when you're younger, it's really, really worthwhile to explore those options.
Totally.
And so for me, my dad was born and raised in New Zealand, and his family has been in New Zealand for a long time, since the mid 1860s. And so that's a part of my heritage. And I always felt like I studied abroad down here. When I was in university, I went to UC Santa Barbara, and I did a study abroad at the University of Otago in Dunedin. And when I lived in New Zealand, during that period of time, I was always saying to myself, man, like, I love how fresh and like wild this country is, and it really speaks to me on a primal level, and it's a place that I wanted to come back. And so when I met you, and you would always talk about, we would go to the Sierra Nevada mountains in California and go camping for, a week or 10 days and go fly fishing together and spend time in nature, and we would be loving that. And I'm like, why don't we go try living in New Zealand? And that was an option. And so, I don't know, I think same with, after college, I went and I was told about this program. My brother did it for a year before me, and he heard about it from another family friend, and it was a program through the Spanish government that would bring English speakers to Spain to teach English. And I didn't really know what I wanted to do right after university, so I did that. And that allowed me to live in Spain for 3 years. And that was a fundamental part of my life and my story. And I wouldn't have known about it if that little chain of events hadn't happened. And I don't know, I think that like sometimes we get too stuck in what we think our lives should look like, and we ignore all of these signs that present themselves for potential detours or deviations that might take our lives into really interesting areas.
Curiosity. It's like, oh, that's an option? Could I do that? And exploring that. And if your gut tells you, yeah, go for that, that feels right, then we are wholehearted believers in go for it. Because if we never moved to New Zealand, we would have always asked ourselves, what if we did? And a huge part of it was that we knew we wanted to have children, and Eliana is now a dual citizen of the US and New Zealand, and that is awesome.
She was a Kiwi before she was an American.
She's a Kiwi. She's a Kiwi through and through. She's actually the only real Kiwi in the family.
Yeah, I'm like a token Kiwi.
Yeah.
I open my mouth and people are like,
Yeah, so who knows if she'll have a little accent, but what's cool about that is that she will have those options from birth.
And that's what we wanted to give her, was the options.
Yeah, if you want to live in the US, you can do that. You have the option to. If you want to stay in New Zealand, you can do that. You have the option to. I now have permanent residency. So Alex and Eliana both have citizenship, and I have permanent residency. And that was a huge deal for me because I got it not too long ago, maybe about 5 months ago. And it took us since January of 2021 for me to get that. And there were all sorts of different visas that I got along the way. And obviously, Eliana having citizenship of New Zealand was something that really pushed me to say, okay, I definitely want to have permanent residency. I think even before Eliana came, I felt that way. I love New Zealand, and I'm so glad that we're in this chapter right now, and that we're being present in it, and that we're letting it drive us and kind of take us to who we're supposed to be. Like, I feel like we have transformed and evolved as humans so much here in so many different ways, emotionally, physically. Our characters have changed, and for the better, because of being able to pull ourselves out of where we've always been, which is the US, and obviously you spent time in Spain, and that formed you in those ways as well. And I think both of us have always been worldly people, because your father's from New Zealand, my mom's full-blooded Italian, but was raised in South America. So we speak Italian and Napolitano and Spanish, and you speak Spanish. We've always been worldly people. We've always traveled. We've always known that there was so much outside of our country, the US, where we're from. but living here and owning a home here and having a plot of land and really throwing ourselves into a new lifestyle, a new country, in a new country that is so far from where we are originally.
Bottom of the world, baby.
Bottom of the world, down under. We're not in Australia, okay?
Yeah.
But we are down under, but we are not in Australia.
When we were getting our dog down here, the lady from the like pet transport company, getting a dog in New Zealand is complicated. And but
our dog was a street dog from Sri Lanka. If anybody knows our story, so he's even more complicated.
We adopted a street dog from Sri Lanka.
His name's Lanka.
Brought him to the United States. Brought him to California, and then when we moved to New Zealand, we brought him to New Zealand as well. But I just distinctly remember the lady from the company. I think she was from Texas or something, but she kept going, "Don't worry, we'll get your dog to Australia." And we're like, "No. Don't do that."
I was like, "Excuse me, ma'am.
Do not send him to Australia. That is
My
not
dog is going to New Zealand, not Australia. These are two different countries."
Yeah.
So that was
close, but no cigar.
It terrified me. I was like, let's just hope he gets to New Zealand.
Triple checking. Destination New Zealand.
Spoiler alert, he's here living on the land, loving life. So he also sleeps inside the house. He's not just living on the land, but he's running around all day long. Sometimes I'm like, where is that dog? And he just comes back and I'm like, where have you been? Mm-hmm. He just goes down the road. Not a lot happens down our road, so
it's a good life for a dog.
It is a really good life for a dog. And
a human.
Having a baby out here is kind of like how I wanted to wrap it up. It just kind of like brings us up to speed and to where we are today, and keeps us kind of like on the same conversation around moving to New Zealand and how it's been. And having Eliana here was such a beautiful experience, because I know that we talk a lot on TikTok. I talked a lot about the US versus New Zealand, and I try to not dig too much on the US. I love being American. I love where we're from. But there are also things that in the States I don't love, and that's just the truth of the matter. And so when we were discussing moving to New Zealand and having a kid here, there were so many things that were really, enticing or inspired, brought me a lot of inspiration thinking about it, because I was like, okay, this is going to be good, because, we had a midwife from the very beginning of the pregnancy to 6 months postpartum.
Yeah, the maternity system here is really good.
Yeah, and that's what was such a beautiful experience. And we touched a little bit on this in the birth story video that's on my YouTube channel. But the whole process, being in a country where you feel really held in that experience, and really cared for. And I would see the same midwife, every single time I would go in, and shout out to Renee. She was so incredible. We're still friends with her to this day. And we would spend, our appointments were like an hour long with her. And we would just ask so many different questions, and she would so willingly answer everything. And you could tell she really loved what she did, because she loved having the conversations around everything. And I just knew that I could text her during her working hours, and she would get back to me when she could, and I could ask her anything that's going on. Hey, this is happening. Is this normal? And coming from, experiencing loss, and then having all of that tremendous support and just feeling so held, was such a beautiful experience. And I just wanted to kind of talk about, that experience and how wonderful it was, and give a nod to New Zealand for their maternity system, because it's just so incredible. And my wish for the world is that every mother gets to have that experience.
I think my view on it is it's reflective of the Kiwi pace of life. And I think in the States, the pace of life is much faster. And when it comes to healthcare, especially, and maternity care, there's a sense of urgency and that from what I've gathered from overhearing conversations you've had with your friends who've had babies in the States, time with the doctor was short, rushed.
5 minutes.
And even, the actual birth experience was rushed. There's a tendency to want to make things happen faster. And if you're not, on schedule, then they're pretty quick to, what do they say? Take the baby out of the sunroof. So I think that, the pace down here was definitely more like, it's okay, you take your time, like, we'll figure it out. We're here to support you and help you, and we can move naturally through this journey, which is, building a baby from scratch and then delivering a baby. And if you want to, we're here to help you however you want to make that happen.
You want to labor in the bath at the hospital for 6 hours, you can do that. I was in that bathtub for far too long. Not far too long, it was perfect. It was the perfect amount of time.
I'm surprised you weren't more pruned.
He always says this. He's like, you weren't. It's because I'm a bath girl. My body's used to being in the bath.
If I were in a bathtub, I'm a Pisces. I love being in the water. But if I was in a bathtub for 6 hours, I'd come out of there like a raisin.
Maybe I was and you just didn't notice. There was too many other things to think about.
Yeah, I wasn't like, show me the bottom of your feet.
But that was the best experience, just being in the bath in the hospital. And that's not normally something that we have in the States. If you're going to do a bath, you're normally going to birth from home, or you're going to go to a specific location like birthing center that has an option to do that. And so my birth plan was, I want to labor in a bath so bad. And so I just kind of asked my midwives just to see if it was possible. And I'm so glad that I did, because instead of me just assuming the answer was no, I was like, is there any way that I could labor in a birthing pool, maybe birth in the pool, but be at the hospital? And the way I said it was just like, is there any way possible? And she was like, yeah, we have a birthing pool at the hospital. And I was like, really? Because that was like my dream, because I didn't want to birth at home. That was just my own feeling. I wanted to, especially also we live in the countryside and things like that. I wanted to be at the hospital, but I wanted to labor and maybe birth in the pool. I ended up just laboring in the pool, but the fact that I was just like, is this at all possible? And she was like, yeah, totally. That's totally possible. And I was just like, yes.
I mean, I think you said just labored. You were in there for 6 hours. You got really close. There was a moment where it looked like you were actually going to give birth in the pool.
Yeah, I was 9 centimeters dilated, and you give birth at 10.
But I think that what you were getting at is that there was a sense of like security in that, knowing you were at the hospital in case things didn't go as planned.
Yeah.
But the fact that you could try to give birth the way you wanted to, with like backup on hand if necessary, made you feel really
that was like my dream situation, because I would think about birthing at home and I would think, God, that'd be so nice. Like I would love to birth here, especially in the countryside, and I could just like be here, labor on this plot of land and in the comfort of my own home. But then I thought to myself, would I actually be as calm as I think I am for my first baby, my first pregnancy? After experiencing pregnancy loss prior to that, I feel like I'd feel more comfortable at a hospital with being able to labor in that way at a pool. And really the main reason why I wanted to potentially birth at home was so that I could labor in a pool. But the fact that I could do both at the hospital, I could have both situations was really nice. And so I'm happy how it all unfolded. And I'm looking down at my phone. Anytime that I've looked at my phone during this time is just because I'm just checking on, seeing if we've talked about all the things that I wanted.
And if I'm looking at my phone, it's because I'm just checking the monitor to see baby is still sleeping.
Having a very good nap. She's been
hour and 36 minutes.
Napping so well.
Pretty
nice.
Yeah.
Wow, we've been podcasting for a bit.
I think we could keep it going.
I think that we might just talk about what's to come. Okay. I think we might Alex is loving this, but
it's very comfortable. I'm digging like on the couch with the mics.
Yeah.
It's nice.
I'm hoping the mics aren't making too much noise.
I hope they're not too noisy. We'll figure it out.
We'll figure it out. We might get, stands that kind of come off like this.
Probably going to get the stands.
Yeah, the stands that are like, you can, But this has been really nice to just like sit down and chat with you. I want to talk about what's to come and sort of what to expect in the podcast world. I don't really have all of the answers to that. I'm going to take everything step by step. Obviously, first and foremost, my main priority in life these days is being mom. And especially in the next month, I will have a 1-year-old. So she's still a little one, but coming into toddler world. We're going to have her first birthday soon. And I'm just like...
Her very first birthday. Oh, sorry. Whoops. Don't worry.
You already did. Anyways.
It's okay. You guys can read the lines, figure that out. So
Surprise! No, I'll share with you guys a little bit about the theme that Alex has just spilled, but that's okay. I've been over here just like scheming about bringing back the podcast, and I haven't let anybody know that I'm going to bring it back. Like I said at the beginning of the podcast, I feel really good about the fact that we're able to record like this, post on the podcast, and post on YouTube. Again, like I said, I will still be doing homestead vlogs. Alex will still be posting on his YouTube channel as well, and he will come and go in the podcast. I love having him as a host or as a guest on the podcast because I feel like I'm the most authentic version of myself when I'm with Alex, because obviously he is my family. He is my, my number one, and so it is nice to just have him here and we can discuss our life, that we've done all of this stuff together. We're parenting together. It's just really nice to have him here for that. But there will be moments where like I have talked about how I want to discuss more about the process of bringing Eliana into the world when it came to pregnancy loss and stuff like that. People have asked me to go into more details about that because I talk about it, but I don't go into the details, and my stomach just growled. I don't know if you guys heard that.
We need breakfast.
Life is good when you just woke up and had a brownie for breakfast. The only thing I need today is a wonderful fudgy brownie.
But we have some eggs, some fresh eggs from the chickens. You have that fresh loaf of sourdough. We have some room temperature New Zealand butter.
Oof.
And I think we're gonna slice some sourdough, give it a little toast, butter it up, and put some scrambled eggs on top.
I think we should do that before the baby wakes up.
Yeah, so I think that's where we're gonna call it, right?
That's our cue to go eat some breakfast.
It's been fun. It's
been really fun. Thank you all so much for tuning in, for being here. This will be a long YouTube video, but it'll be also a long podcast. But it's our first one back, so we needed to catch up. And thank you for coming on.
Yeah, love Soul Sugar, love the Soul Sugar community, and happy to be here whenever you want.
So. Soul Sugar Podcast, like sugar for your soul. Thanks for tuning in. Bye.
Good job. 1 hour and 20 minutes, Carrie.
Nice.
Wow.